Narrator, tone, serious. The night was filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses. Michael's friend John, with two women clinging to him, leaned in with a drunken grin.
Just keep changing women and sadness won't catch up with me.
John's red eyes from drinking revealed his attempt to mask his own loneliness.
Michael, you've been with Emily for 10 years. Why hasn't she agreed to marry you yet? Is there something going on with her?
Michael felt the sting of the question. Emily and he had been seeing less of each other, and their relationship lacked the passion it once had.
She's not that kind of person. She's just too busy with work to plan the wedding.
Just as Michael finished speaking, a hostess opened the door. From his angle, Michael could see through the half-open door of the opposite private room. Narrator, tone, serious. A man and a woman were tightly embracing each other, their passion palpable. The man's back looked strikingly similar to Michael's busy with work girlfriend, Emily. Michael was stunned.
Is this gentleman interested in Miss Emily? I advise you to give up early. She's the company president and very proper, except for often bringing Mr. Brown here. She keeps her distance from all other men. Ordinary people can't get close to her.
Emily was so busy with work that she sent James to check on Michael when he had a car accident. How could she have time to frequently bring another man to this club? Michael still held on to a sliver of hope. Maybe it was just two people with similar builds and the same surname. But he wasn't the type to avoid the truth. Michael took out his phone and called Emily. Narrator, tone, terrified. The woman in the opposite room's phone rang. She hung up the call, typed a few words, and then urgently kissed the man again. His hand slipped under her shirt, and the scene was so intense it made people blush. But when Michael looked at the "in a meeting" message on his phone, his face turned pale.
If Emily dares to betray you, I'll go teach that pair a lesson right now.
Michael stopped him. Emily was the most important person to him. No matter the truth, he didn't want to embarrass her. Michael's mind was in turmoil, and he didn't even know how he got home. Narrator, tone, serious. That night, Emily, who was extremely busy with work, surprisingly came home. Her face, which Michael had known since childhood, now felt incredibly unfamiliar.
Emily, can we talk?
Sorry, I have to work late tonight.
Emily walked over apologetically and bent down to kiss Michael. But as she got closer, the strong scent of men's cologne on her made his stomach churn.
What happened to your lip?
Emily was startled, a hint of panic flashing in her eyes.
I accidentally bumped it.
Michael had known Emily since they were children in the orphanage, and it hadn't been easy to get to where they were today. Everything they had now, they had worked hard for together. Unless absolutely necessary, he didn't want to give up their current life.
Emily, do you remember our promise never to lie to each other?
To err is human. They had known each other for nearly 30 years and had been in love for 10. If she made a mistake, Michael was willing to give her another chance. Emily sighed and wrapped her arms around Michael's neck.
Of course not, Michael. I've just been busy with work lately. Don't overthink it. Once the company goes public, we'll get married.
Michael had been waiting for her to mention marriage for years. Now that he finally heard it, he only felt sadness. She still hadn't been honest with him. Seeing Michael's reaction, Emily's expression softened with concern. She hesitated for a moment.
All right, don't be upset. I won't go to work today. I'll stay with you, okay?
Okay. I'll ask Mrs. Smith to prepare the meal.
All right.
Michael thought he would talk things out with Emily during the meal. If the love was gone, they should break up without lies, as long as he got his fair share. But just as the food was set on the table, Emily received a phone call and changed her mind.
Sorry, Michael, there's an emergency at the company. I can't stay for dinner.
She grabbed her suit jacket and left, her face full of urgency. Michael looked at the table full of food and lost his appetite completely.
Emily, do you think I'm a fool?
He wanted to break up with dignity, but she wouldn't even give him the chance. Just now, being so close, he could hear a man's voice complaining on the other end of the call. After she left, Michael went into the study and opened her computer. She was very cautious, leaving no traces in her WeChat, except for her chat history with Sophia, which was completely deleted.
So it wasn't Lily.
Emily had been mentioning an intern named Sophia frequently lately, always with a smile on her face. Michael had felt something was off and subtly inquired about it. She said it was Lily, a recent college graduate. Michael sent a friend request to Sophia.
I'm a staff member at the club. Please accept the request.
Half an hour later, the request was accepted. He opened Sophia's Moments, and the first post was from half an hour ago. Accidentally cut my finger, and my boss came to take care of me, laughing. She even fed me, so gentle and caring. The post included a picture of a woman feeding a man with a spoon, exuding an air of intimacy. Both only showed their chins. But Emily had a scar on her index finger, a mark from saving Michael once. He would never mistake it. Michael clenched his fists and continued scrolling, almost masochistically. Couldn't decide between Huawei Mate 60 and iPhone 15 Pro, so my boss bought both. Who has such a great boss? Oh, it's mine. Didn't want takeout, so my boss cooked for me. So touched. Each post had numerous comments from mutual friends.
Wow, Emily treats you so well. When will we get to eat your wedding candy? Emily usually has a stern face, but she's so attentive to you. You can tell if a woman likes someone at a glance. You two have such a great relationship. Even at my age, it makes me want to fall in love.
Michael thought Emily had hidden her affair well, but it turned out he was the only one deceived. He used to be the person she cared about the most, but now she gave all that attention to another man. He scrolled down, enduring the discomfort until he saw a post that broke his composure. Feeling down, so my boss gave me a day off and took me to the amusement park. Don't be too jealous. The post included a photo of Emily happily leaning into a young man's arms, and the young man looked strikingly like a younger version of Michael. This was posted last National Day. At that time, Michael had a car accident, severely injuring an artery. It was a critical situation, and he had no choice but to call Emily.
I have a meeting, I can't leave. James will come over.
Michael believed her. But she was at the amusement park with her lover. In the end, it was a client named David who happened to pass by and took care of everything for him. Tears welled up in Michael's eyes and finally rolled down. He wiped his tears and sent Emily a message.
Emily, let's break up.
The message went out, disappearing into the void as usual. Michael mustered the strength to throw all his belongings out of the house, leaving only his computer and a few clothes. As he was about to leave, Emily must have seen the message, as she started calling him repeatedly. Even without seeing her, Michael could feel her panic. Michael didn't answer any of the calls, he hung up on all of them, just like Emily used to do to him. But tears uncontrollably streamed down his face. When Michael was 4, his mother had an affair, and his father discovered that his sister wasn't his biological child. In a fit of rage, his father ended the lives of his mother and sister, leaving Michael all alone. With no grandparents or willing relatives to take him in, he was sent to an orphanage. That day, Michael clutched the airplane model his mother had given him and cried incessantly. He had no family left.
Here, have a piece of candy. From now on, I will be your family.
Even in the orphanage, Emily meant what she said. The other kids found out about Michael's situation and treated him poorly. Emily fought anyone who insulted him, often getting scolded by the orphanage teachers. In the dead of winter, Emily was punished to stand outside, her face turning red from the cold. Michael felt sad and stood on tiptoe to wrap a scarf around her.
Emily, please don't fight because of me anymore. I'll just pretend I didn't hear them.
No way. I said I would treat you as family, and no one can bully you.
She kept her promise. When Michael was 8, a predatory adopter lured him into a corner and tried to harm him. Emily found out and fought the adopter, despite being only 13. She was beaten badly but clung to the adopter's leg, telling Michael to run. The scar on her finger was from that incident. As Michael grew older, many people pursued him. But he could never forget the girl who protected him. At some point, he started to follow her with his eyes unconsciously. When she smiled, he felt happy. When Michael turned 18, Emily came to him with a bouquet of red roses, her face flushed, and confessed her feelings.
Michael, I like you. Please give me a chance to love and protect you, not just as a sister.
Michael remembered her promise and started proposing to her when he turned 22. But Emily never accepted his proposals, always busy with work. They started a company together, but she thought Michael was too impulsive and jealous. Once, because a business partner hinted at spending the night with her, Michael beat him up, causing them to lose the deal. So, Michael learned to be more tactful and steady, protecting her without jeopardizing their business. The company gradually stabilized, and Michael's influence began to surpass Emily's. She wasn't happy, feeling he was too dominant and often dismissing her decisions. Michael wanted to marry her, to have a warm family, not endless arguments over work. So, after careful consideration, he left the company. He thought if he changed according to Emily's wishes, she would marry him. But in the end, she fell for a young, cheerful man. That night, Michael moved out and stayed at John's place. The next morning, John and Michael went to the sports field to play basketball. Michael loved the feeling of exercising. During a break, John handed Michael a bottle of water.
Emily has been calling me non-stop since you blocked her. It's so annoying. I told her you were here.
As soon as he finished speaking, Emily arrived, agitated.
Why did you call the orphanage and say you weren't going to adopt the child anymore? We've been together for 10 years. If there's something I'm not doing right, you can tell me.
Emily was very career-oriented. She said having a child would affect her work and wanted to adopt instead. Michael respected her wishes and agreed.
If I don't call the orphanage, should I wait until we bring the child home and let Sophia be his stepmother?
Emily was stunned, full of panic.
Michael, he's just an intern at my company.
Which in turn needs to kiss the boss and spend the night together?
Michael interrupted her, exhausted.
Emily, I saw you with him in the private room at the club yesterday.
Emily's face turned pale in an instant, and she kept apologizing to me repeatedly.
He looks so much like you that I can't help but notice him. Now you're so composed and thoughtful, I feel like I can't see through you anymore.
But it was clearly her who wanted me to become like this.
If you really feel sorry for me, then just give me more money.
I couldn't hold on to my other half, but I couldn't lose the benefits either. Otherwise, all these years of hardship would have been for nothing. I knew very well that she felt guilty towards me now, and it would be easy to get what I wanted. Once she completely fell for Sophia, I might end up with nothing.
Have you made up your mind?
Yes.
Emily's lips moved, but seeing my bad expression, she finally just nodded.
Take my number off the blacklist so we can communicate more easily.
Okay.
As soon as I nodded, there was a burst of applause from behind me, followed by excited cheers.
Bravo!
I couldn't help but twitch my mouth at the familiar voice. When I turned around, I saw David standing behind me. To be honest, she was also the CEO of a gaming company, and she looked pretty good. But she was carefree and a bit naive, becoming a CEO purely because her family was wealthy and she was lucky. Every time I saw her, I felt like I was looking at a husky. Emily's face darkened at the cheers, but David, oblivious, said cheerfully,
Thank you, sis. If it weren't for your infidelity, I wouldn't have had a chance.
She elbowed Emily aside without any decorum and came up to me, her eyes sparkling.
Mr. Johnson, I've invited you to my company so many times before, but you always refused, saying your girlfriend didn't like you working outside. Now that you're single, can you consider being the general manager at my company?
Emily never liked it whether I worked at my own company or someone else's. At my own company, I was too dominant, affecting her prestige. At another company, she said with my abilities, I would definitely be in a leadership position and be extremely busy. If we were both busy, it would be even harder to meet. So, despite many invitations, I always refused. Now that we had broken up, I didn't need to consider Emily's feelings anymore.
I'll think about it.
Great!
David's eyes sparkled even more. Despite being a top beauty, she acted like a little maid, running errands for me. She even left her Bentley behind to be my driver and deliberately didn't let Emily get in the car. On the way, David kept praising me and trying to convince me.
Mr. Johnson, you're handsome and smart. Don't ever forgive someone who betrayed you. With your qualities, who wouldn't be a match for you? I can introduce you to some excellent candidates. If you fancy me, it would be a blessing for my family for generations.
John, with his low laughter threshold, sounded like a goose sitting next to me the whole way. When I got home, I saw a message from Emily.
Who is she?
None of your business.
When we were in love, Emily was like a vinegar jar, wanting to know about every woman around me. But now I realized that in our few recent conversations, she always mentioned Sophia. Sophia likes sweets. Sophia loves horror movies. Sophia blinks a lot when she's nervous. She hadn't cared about me for a long time. After my breakup, John, worried about my mood, took a vacation to stay with me at home. Ironically, I used to see Emily only a few times a month because she was always busy with work. But after our breakup, she would come to see me 3 times a day. Emily, worried that I couldn't take care of myself, hired Mrs. Smith to look after me. Knowing I liked collecting wine, she brought several bottles of Romani Conti Grand Cru. Because I had mentioned wanting to travel to Turkey, she planned the route and said she could take me anytime I wanted. She apologized for not accompanying me in the past 10 years. It was like going back to the old days. As long as I said a word, she would try her best to satisfy me. But I knew very well that we couldn't go back to the way things were.
You're busy with work, you don't need to keep coming.
As long as she gave me the money I deserved, that would be enough.
It's okay, your health is more important. Work can wait.
But I don't want to see you. Seeing you makes me feel bad.
Michael's words left Emily stunned, her fragility evident as she stared at him, struggling to believe what she had just heard.
When I see you, I remember all your lies and your double dealing. It makes me feel uncomfortable.
After all these years, Michael, can't you give me another chance?
When I had that accident and you couldn't come, but were instead at the amusement park with Sophia, did you ever think about all the years we've been together?
Michael knew she genuinely wanted to make amends. She didn't stop loving him, it was just that seeing him reminded her of their tumultuous past and the things others said about her. She chose to avoid him and found someone easier to control.
Emily, you can't have everything. That's too greedy. Let's part on good terms, leave me with some good memories, and don't make me feel disgusted whenever I think of you.
Emily seemed truly hurt by his words. After she left, she didn't come back. She just had her lawyer transfer the money to him. Michael owned 25% of the company shares. Initially, Emily thought that with the company about to go public, holding on to these shares would yield greater returns. But he didn't want that.
To be honest, she lacked vision and was too concerned with personal gains and losses. She wasn't particularly suited to be a leader.
Michael didn't want his earnings to be tied to her. Emily handled things efficiently and quickly converted the shares into cash for him. Along with the money, she sent him a message.
Even if we can't be lovers, I will always be your sister. You can come to me anytime you need help. Also, David isn't right for you. You don't need to find such a girlfriend just to get back at me.
When Michael was her boyfriend, she didn't come when he had an accident. He certainly wouldn't count on her in the future. He found it amusing and deleted her from his contacts. Then he chatted with a few headhunters who were interested in recruiting him. Seeing Michael still in contact with other companies, David kept trying to dissuade him.
The CEO of that new tech company is notorious. He won't leave any handsome male employees alone. You're so good-looking, going there would be like a lamb to the slaughter. Yin Qian is no good either. They're too stingy. Ask around, and you'll find out they force employees over 45 to resign just to avoid paying severance. And that other one is no good either.
David was a spoiled third-generation rich kid. Apart from social connections, he knew nothing about business and just held the title of chairman. He didn't work every day, instead, he stayed around Michael, telling him the benefits of joining his company. To persuade Michael, David cleaned, cooked, and made snacks. His culinary skills were on par with Mrs. Smith's. David also doubled as a playmate. Whenever Michael wanted to play games, poker, or mahjong, David would join in and subtly let him win. John was also amused by him. Whether Michael talked to John about politics, games, cars, watches, or wine, David could converse fluently. If Michael and John showed interest in any food, drink, or activity, David would have it in front of them within a day.
I have to say, he successfully won me over.
The day Michael agreed, David immediately arranged for a lawyer to come over, and by 11 that night, he was urging Michael to sign the contract.
Mr. Wilson, you really went all out to recruit me, didn't you? Even people chasing their boyfriends don't put in this much effort.
That's because Emily didn't love you enough. If she did, she wouldn't have cheated. Someone as smart, handsome, kind, and generous as you deserves someone who would bring down the moon for you.
David wasn't just guarding against other companies trying to recruit Michael, he also wanted to prevent him from getting back together with Emily. He feared Michael might choose to stay home because of a significant other. Over the past month, David had bad-mouthed Emily countless times, leaving Michael both amused and exasperated.
It's getting late.
It was time for David to leave.
There's a sofa in the living room. I can manage for one night. Tomorrow morning, I'll take you to work.
There's also a guest room. No need for Mr. Wilson to sleep on the sofa.
The next morning, after washing up and having breakfast, Michael left with David. As soon as they reached the entrance of the building, they ran into Emily.
Michael, did you let her stay the night?
David's displeasure was palpable, even before I had a chance to speak.
How can you talk like that? Mr. Johnson isn't as casual as you and Sophia. Besides, you're an ex-girlfriend. Why meddle?
Ignoring the sadness in Emily's eyes, I responded calmly.
Miss Emily and I have already parted ways. It's best if you don't look for me anymore to avoid misunderstandings with Mr. Brown.
With that, I got into the car without looking back. From the moment she chose dishonesty, a peaceful coexistence was out of the question. David stepped on the gas, and Emily's figure quickly disappeared from view. Speeding, we were soon stopped by the traffic police and given a stern lecture.
It was the first time in my life I was scolded in public, and I was too embarrassed to lift my head. The lingering sadness in my heart dissipated instantly.
David felt embarrassed and transferred a considerable amount of money to me as compensation for emotional distress, making me feel too awkward to complain. After I completed the onboarding process, I was so busy for the next few months that I barely had time to catch my breath. I heard from others that Emily had publicly announced a new boyfriend and that her company was having issues with its IPO. I didn't have time to listen to the details, let alone feel sentimental about it.
I was initially worried that my strong personality might displease David, just like Emily once blamed me for affecting her authority in the company.
But David only knew how to cook for me, buy me clothes, shield me from drinking, and arrange hotels for business trips. She stubbornly took on the role of my personal assistant, managing only this small area of my life. Someone told her,
Michael is very cunning. Be careful, or you might get taken advantage of without knowing it. Didn't you see how many tricks he pulled at Emily's company before he got kicked out? Now Michael calls the shots at your company. Mr. Wilson should be careful, or soon his words won't carry as much weight as Michael's.
Emily had grown distant from me because she heard too much of this kind of gossip.
David and I hadn't known each other for long, and I was quite worried about her reaction to such talk. I planned to have a good conversation with her.
But before I could talk to her, word spread that she had fired a senior executive and cut ties with 2 friends.
These people are all up to no good. I finally found a competent general manager so I could relax, and they try to sow discord. They're just coveting you, wanting me to fire you so they can poach you.
David was so afraid I'd leave that even though I repeatedly assured her, she still didn't sleep well for a week. She usually grinned from ear to ear, so seeing her suddenly worried was quite unsettling.
I've cashed out my shares in Emily's company. How about I invest this money in your company? If I become a shareholder, you won't have to worry about me leaving.
Her personal business skills weren't great, but her employees were exceptionally capable. Several senior executives were persuaded to join her company through her efforts. David thought my suggestion was feasible and immediately had the legal department prepare a contract for me to sign on the spot, fearing I might change my mind. But why would I back out of a mutually beneficial arrangement? I worked non-stop for nearly half a year, and it wasn't until the New Year holiday that I heard from John about Emily's recent situation.
She had a falling out with a senior executive at her company who was forced to resign and, in anger, exposed her affair with Sophia and reported the company for tax issues. Just as the company was about to go public, these 2 scandals emerged, and the IPO plans were scrapped. Emily and Sophia also broke up, and it was an unpleasant split. He complained to everyone, saying she was still hung up on her past love and kept bothering her.
Emily's life has been a mess since she left you.
I just smiled. Someone who once could control my emotions with a single glance now couldn't stir any feelings in me. Previously, when Emily called me, I answered, but she only dryly reminded me to take care of myself. She probably wanted me to help solve those scandals but didn't dare to ask directly. On the 28th of the last lunar month, the orphanage director invited me to visit. David insisted on coming along, and I was used to having her around, so I agreed. She seemed to have some feelings for me, but I didn't mind. She was sincere and straightforward, providing me with enough emotional value. Being with her, I didn't feel anxious or insecure. I felt relaxed and happy. Compared to my childhood, the orphanage's conditions had improved significantly. As the new year approached, the children were all cheerful. Because Emily and I had been donating to the orphanage for years, the director had the children prepare a thank you dinner for us. This was the first time in 6 months I saw Emily. She wore a wool coat over a dress, still looking elegant and beautiful, but noticeably thinner.
You two aren't getting any younger. When are you planning to get married?
Emily's eyes brightened slightly, and the corners of her lips curved a bit.
Mrs. Smith, we broke up half a year ago because we weren't compatible.
Emily's gaze dimmed instantly. She was the one who strayed, and I had no idea who she was putting on this act for now. David, on the other hand, had a grin so wide it could hang an oil can, and now he was baring his teeth in amusement again.
Michael, switch seats with the young lady next to me so you don't feel uncomfortable sitting with your ex-girlfriend.
Emily hesitated to speak, but I pretended not to notice and swiftly changed seats. During the meal, I drank a lot of water and went to the restroom. Emily cornered me outside the bathroom. She looked down at me with the same deep affection as when our relationship first began.
Michael, after we broke up, I realized I can't live without you. I've had sleepless nights, thinking about how you were so small when I held your hand as a child. I remember when we first started our business, you were worried about my health and made soup for me, and
It's over between us.
we can start over. You gave David a chance to pursue you, why can't you give me another chance?
Because there's no trust between us anymore. I don't want to live my life in doubt.
If I were with her, I'd wonder if she was lying whenever she said she was busy with work. If she didn't come home, I'd suspect she was in another man's arms. Jealousy and suspicion would turn me into a monster. Someone who strayed isn't worth losing myself over.
Emily, let's leave each other some dignity. Take care of yourself.
David was standing not far away but didn't come over to interrupt us. He just waved at me with a smile. I couldn't help but smile back and walked over to him, taking his hand. His face turned red all the way to his neck, and he walked awkwardly.
Mr. Wilson, you're already 25. How can you be so innocent?
It's my first time liking someone, unlike some people who have been in a relationship for 10 years.
He fidgeted as he spoke and somehow produced a men's ring, slipping it onto my middle finger. It was clearly premeditated.
The proposal will come later. You've held my hand, so you have to take responsibility. I'm not as casual as Emily.
Such an expensive ring? It practically buys out the rest of my life.
David's pout disappeared, replaced by a beaming smile. He stood on tiptoe to kiss me. The kids didn't know what was happening but joined in the laughter. Emily stood forlornly on the outskirts of the crowd. I didn't even notice when she left. A year later, David and I got married because of our child. His family was quite wealthy, and I was worried his parents would be unhappy with my background.
We only have this one silly daughter, and our biggest wish is for her to find a smart and capable son-in-law to take over the family business. This girl is lucky and found just that.
She was so sweet with her words that I felt like I was floating. Now I understood where David got his high emotional intelligence from. His father was a man of few words, but very generous. He gave me a black card, thanking me for taking his daughter. At the wedding, Emily gave a generous gift and got inebriated. It was David who arranged for someone to take her home. After that, Emily didn't bother me again, but she kept changing boyfriends. They all had different personalities, but their eyes and brows resembled mine. Even I felt uncomfortable, and I was worried David would be upset. But she just cuddled our 2 kids in my arms, smiling.
Emily can't forget you, which only proves how great you are. Why would I be angry? I'm thrilled to have found such a treasure like you.
Hearing that, I smiled too. Being with her, I realized that love never causes pain. If loving someone brings heartache, that relationship should end.